Hi, this is another edition of Biology in a Minute with Miss Feldbush. Today we're going to talk about energy storage in cells. Cells don't use batteries to store energy. Batteries are way too big to fit inside cells. Instead, the cell uses a molecule called ATP to store energy. ATP is short for adenosine triphosphate. The adenosine has an A, which is the same A that's bonded to T in DNA. It also has a ribose, which is the same sugar that's used to make RNA. Those molecules are hooked to 1, 2, 3 phosphate groups. Because each of the 3 phosphate groups has a negative charge, those are trying to repel one another, and that creates a lot of potential energy. That potential energy is stored within these chemical bonds, and it can be harvested by breaking these bonds and stored by reforming them. If we're still using the battery analogy, then ATP represents a full battery. It's got stored energy that can be released for use within the cell. ADP is adenosine diphosphate. It only has 2 phosphates instead of the 3 in ATP. It would represent an empty battery. The processes in the cell that store and release energy are photosynthesis and respiration. And you'll see ATP is produced during each of the steps of photosynthesis and respiration. You'll learn more about these in detail later. ATP synthase is the molecule that actually forms and breaks the bonds within the ATP. It sits within the inner membrane of the mitochondria, and as it does that, it bonds to ADP and to phosphate. Hydrogen ions will flow through some complicated processes of respiration that we'll talk more about later, but as it does that, it causes this enzyme to spin. It's actually the physical spinning of the enzyme that causes these bonds to form. It seems like a lot of detail, but it's just nice to know that every time a bond forms within a cell, it's tied to an actual physical process. To use our battery analogy one last time, just like there are different brands of batteries, there are also different energy storing molecules within the cell. The one that you're going to see most often is ATP. If you only know one, that's the one you should know about. But you might also run into other molecules like NADH, NADPH, and FADH. They all work in ways really similar to ATP, and so as long as you've got that ATP molecule down, the others are going to make sense. The easiest way to think of it is to think of the ATP as a full battery and the ADP as an empty battery. As long as you can do that, it's easy to understand how the cell stores energy and releases it for use later. I hope this has been an energizing presentation. Thanks for tuning in.